Hello everyone, welcome back to channel Cloud Consultant. Today I'm going to have a theoretical session on mastering AWS Landing Zone, set up a secure, scalable AWS environment with Landing Zone. So, yep, um, I'll be going through the session with theoretical, but I'll also try to present a demo in next video. Yeah. Uh, Moving on to the next slide. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Uh, Before jumping to landing zone, I want to present the autonomy of how on-prem data center used to look and what was the pain we used to you have when manage on-prem data center. Not really big, but having a complete control and having so many different set of skill set and engineer we used to manage, right? So talking about the distribution, we used to have a server, storage, networking, and hardware, right? So hardware were one of the player where every now and then, like hardware replacement, like once you purchase the hardware and put it in data center, right? It has some life, maybe 2 years or 3 years. That hardware has to be replaced with a different, new disk and new CPU and other things. So on top of that, the networking was main component where connecting your hardwares and connecting to your ISP and thirdly giving the services, right? So storage was main component for having serving the storage to your services, like whatever services were getting installed on-prem, right, on the server. They used to have chunk of NFS network file system, SAN storage, which used to be used and getting served through your servers. So yeah, web server was the main thing where the application used to install, right? So as a complete control, we used to have like four category, and the managing this entire thing was required for the four different skill set engineers, and it was like a complete mm, big things, yeah, when you look into the on-prem data center. But yeah, how do they manage the kind of complete control? They should have a lot of tools to get the visibility of monitoring of servers, get the monitoring of storage, get the monitoring of network, hardware. So anything gets failed, there has to have the monitoring layer for doing this at the central clock, respective team and control. So that was more of dividing the how on-prem data center autonomy was looking. Um, Moving on to the next slide, it's more of like which one to choose, right? I haven't gone through the landing zone, but I'm just telling that there's a decision-making thing, right? Like what organization need, right? Basically, uh, uh, since the organization came up, like, and they have the on-prem autonomy, and if any organization like enterprise or startup, they would like to uh, start with the application or deployment. What would be the advantage on-prem? What would be the advantage on the cloud, right? They have a lot of questions, right? When it comes to the thing. So yeah, I think they generally make the list. I mean, what should be our advantage over you? Like, how should be considering whether in terms of failover, resiliency, and data risk point, security point. So all of questions getting um, uh, uh, getting on asked by the stakeholders, and definitely the informed decision is provided based on the risk and based on this thing. So uh, move, having said that, cloud is the service which gives you a lot of flexibility compared to on-prem. It gives you the uptime, maintenance and flexibility in terms of maintaining without any headache of infrastructure. We used to host a lot of services in cloud with a less minimum investment, right? But there's some cons as well, right? Like cognition, like banking and printing. Data security is something getting a lot of concern. But nowadays, like AWS is launching so many good services like Outpost, right, local zone, so that helps them to keep the data in their own region, in their own city, right? And for REST services, like you can use AWS services. So yeah, I'll focus more on the AWS landing zone, and give you the benefit of like what landing zone is, right? So uh, landing zone is a solution that will cover almost all this point which I have mentioned, right? Like um, as in on-prem autonomy, you saw that there was a controller, right, which you used to control all your substance. So same thing, landing zone also does the control of all your environment. So landing zone is nothing but the same on-prem structure on cloud, right? So logging, monitoring cloud resources. So you have a better logging monitoring system get covered in the landing zone. We get the better organization structure as well, getting the identity access management, like the IAM perspective. You have central user management for all your user access to cloud, central operation management for all your system operation, run command, Ansible, also system managers. So centralized billing management, good for the financial FinOpsing, like they get access to build their services. Centralized logging is very useful for security, where they are able to see everything in one account, in one bucket, and they can be visualized to your SIM solution. Operation man event, network connectivity, deployment automations, operational enablement, infrastructure security, data protection, incident response, and cost governance and control. So, this is a high level bullet point, but I'm going to explain everything in detail in our coming slide in the diagram. I know that having the points doesn't relate more. Instead of that, we should have a diagram. So I'll be explaining more detail in the diagram. Uh, I think this is more of the security baseline, which I have covered and divided into a six section: like authentications, access control, user behavior, logging, reporting, governance, compliance, and data encryption. Right. So when it comes to the security, right, they have a lot of questions and concerns. So these are the layer which get covered within your AWS landing zone. So I'll not spend much time on this, but yeah, this is more of what we get when we adopt the landing zone control on the server on the cloud. Okay, this is where I wanted to talk about um, uh, landing zone is terminology, right, of the practice that we are going to enable. But in behind that, there's a service called AWS Org and Org Control Tower. AWS Org is something uh, initially was created for the multi-account, but later on Control Tower was created to do a lot of other things than what organization used to do. So Control Tower is sitting as a control point for your managing all your asset, which is resided in the cloud. So it gives you resource management, visibility. It gives you billing management, consolidated billing management, right? It gives you compliance management for the security people from central. For security, also like they allow you to give you the security benchmark and enforce your organization. So that's more of like security implementation, security measures for getting control on the organization side. There's a policy applying governance and operational policy. So as I said, like policy also can be pushed to your all your organization asset cloud services, so that it adhere the guardrails which is offered. So yeah, this is more of what Control Tower offers as a org service. Um, yeah, I wanted to cover this organization unit, right? When it comes to the cloud, um, it gives you feature of having one root OUs and dividing the multiple sub OUs. So what is the benefit of this? I'll tell you about that. So first, like, why do we need a structure, right? Suppose we have a develop environment, we have testing environment, we have production environment, right? So we create a sub OU saying that development OU, production OU, testing OU. In development, we create a multiple testing account, delete, create, right? In testing also, like testing thing is happening, so all of deletion and creation of the account is happening, right? During this process, we don't want them to block by anything, because this is a research and development account where they are doing the testing, developers are creating testing and doing the things. But even though we don't want them to be following not certain security practice, right? We have to enforce them to be follow some security practice in terms of using credential, not getting that credential to be passed to somewhere else, making sure that they're using a STS temporary credentials, and they are using the given home region instead of other home region, right? All those of guardrails can be applied on the SCP at the SCP level, and that SCP is nothing but it's a service control policy you apply on your OU, and respective OU. Once you apply on the OU, respective account will have that restriction. So the benefit is that your production is having all hardened SCPs and not getting applied over here, and it gives you like it doesn't allow the development environment or testing environment to get blocked by those SCP, right? So and it keeps you isolated as well, like how many testing environment I have, how many development environment have I, how many production environment I have. It gives you a list of account under the OU, and keep the isolation between these things. So yeah, there's more of the isolation perspective. The OUs are getting designed under the AWS Landing Zone. Yeah, this is one of the slide which want to talk in detail uh, what landing zone is, and the new term that AWS had launched is SRA. It's a security reference architectures. So this architecture is mainly as security reference architectures, which we have prepared. Um, uh, I have created separate boxes, right? Let me highlight. So the boxes which is sitting here, this is my main core admin account where I'm managing, like, whenever organizations or landing zone you're creating, right? Your main one root account is getting set up. So this is my management account where I have flexibility to use all these services which I mentioned, right? So under the organization management account, we have a feature called non-delegator and delegator. So I'll give an example about what means by non-delegator and delegator. Delegator is like there are organizational enabled services. These services I want to delegate to some. These services importance and these services uses I want to delegate to some other account. Example, AWS Identity Center. AWS Identity Center is for user management and permission management, right? So every organization have a separate IM team, right? Which take care of user thing, or user onboarding, permission, role assigning, everything. So I want this service to be delegated to a separate account, so that only IAM user able to log into this AWS account and do the IAM related thing like permission thing, activity, SAML integration, other things. So it's like they have the roles, and they will have access to only one account, that is identity account, and they do the stuff of the thing. Same goes for other thing, like we have firewall manager and guard duty, security hub. So I want that guard duty, security hub. This should be managed by security people, right? So I can delegate the service to the security account, and security people who has access to the security account, they can create the policies and create all those and uh, policies and guardrails and everything, and they can uh, try also take the monitoring of this. So this is more for security people. So coming to non-delegated, there are some services which cannot be delegated, right? So example, we have Control Tower is organization service. So this is something we cannot share and delegate with anything. Control Tower is a service by itself, is giving the flexibility to check the number of compliant, non-compliant resources, check the number of guardrails that you're applying, check, and it gives you feature of account factory. So it it cannot be passed out this delegated to anything. Same goes to SCP, service control policy, marketplace, RAM, war, directory services, personal health, right? These services cannot be delegated to anything. This is like organizational need services. Coming back to below, right? These are my the organization account. So this these big boxes I've kept as separate because this is more of um, supporting account for your workload. So I'm talking about the workload in the right side corner. You can have a multiple as much as workload account you want, like you have 10, 20, 50 account based on your need, right? So when I say workload account, it's like a raw AWS account which you're creating to launch your services like EC2 machine, containers, RDS, EFS, right? You launch it for serving the request. And how would you like guard, like who will monitor all these services, right? So for those supporting things, we have this many accounts. So talking about the archive account, the importance of this account is to collect the logs across all your workloads, all your accounts, and store in S3 bucket, which means you have a centralized logging where this log can be streamed to your any of the OpenSearch or any of the SIEM solution like Splunk. You have Sentinel. Stream these logs to any of the bucket. That's the importance of this log account. So for security people, it's very easy for them to get the logging and do the incident and response on that. Network account, it's useful for the network team to monitor or do the network related services, right? So we'll talk about transit gateway, VPC peering. You have a WAF, firewall manager, site-to-site VPN, all the network services which you want to adhere or do have a control from your for all your workload, you can do it from here. So I'll discuss more on the network account in network account in the next slide. I have a networking diagram as well. But yeah, this is something like storing the network related services over here. We have identity account as I discussed. Identity account specialty is for hosting the IAM related services. Like you have your permission group, assume role, managing, giving the granular permissions, and doing all sort of things. Security account. So benefit of having security account is to have all your security services like Messi, Firewall Manager, Security Hub, Guard Duty Detective. These services are useful to detect the services across all your workload and give them a report, right? Like and it find out, it alert and tell your security team like these are the accounts which is getting brute force attack. These are the account which is IAM user which is getting compromised. These are the list of instance which port has been opened, right? So all sort of security related things are getting monitored in this account. Then comes the main account. Main thing is the workload, right? Workload is something where we are going to launch actual services to serve the request. So this is complete sort of on the way we saw in the on-prem autonomy, right? This is a cloud autonomy where we have multi accounts and you have your organization account to monitor that and do the guardrail, managing all your account from central place. We have some supporting accounts which will do its job to from central place, and this account can be provided access to the respective team and do the job. So no IAM user, no IAM or security people or IAM people need to have different account to manage the thing. They don't need to have access to workload account. They can do everything from there, right? So yeah, workload importance is mainly for the launching it. I have highlighted few six services below in each and every account, right? So this account is nothing, this is nothing but it's a baseline, right? It's a baseline for each and every account. So whenever new accounts are getting provision from the control tower account factory, right? Each and every account will have this baseline. So that is what we have defined here, saying that every now and then organizations are creating the account. So we don't want that account to be a raw. It has to be a practice, best practices with our security, and the baseline has to be there, right? So we make sure that baseline, uh, as of now, I've covered like six baseline, but it can be more and more like as per your organization need. So as per the security best practices, we want that account to be enabled with Security Hub, Guard Duty, Messi, Config, IAM Analyzer, and Clouded. This services has to be configured in those account, and it has to share the data to the security accounts for the visibility, right? So that's kind of a baseline is been deployed. So any sort of account you're creating and deleting, the moment the new account get created, the baseline will automatically get deployed in that account. So That's a whole concept of landing zone and what's the importance of having this landing zone, right? Um, yes, I think I'll move to the next slide, which is the network related components. I'll discuss this um, in a way like so think of that we have in the right side corner we have this many production account in right side yeah sorry in the left side we have production account in the right side we have a non-prod account and below we have a on-prem account, right? So this all boxes which I've kept, right? This is something it's nothing but it's a VPCs in each and every accounts, and it hold the workload. So suppose I have shared service account where I'm keeping all of my backup services, AD services, right? I have now a production account where I'm keeping all my production related services, right? I have some services on containers, some services on EKS. I'm keeping on the same. Same goes for here. So I have this many subnets. I'm keeping running my all my services over there. So how do the network engineers knows about what monitoring, like anything, if any services is getting attack or if any traffic is coming from outside to inside, how the network engineer comes to know, right? So each and every account, VPC, if you see route table will have a uh, uh, traffic forwarding to your transit gateway. So transit gateway is nothing but the peering between the both VPCs, and it's a centralized peering hub. Before we used to use the VPC peering, but now this is the production. This is the transit gateway, which is majorly now used to manage your connectivity between your VPCs. So transit gateway collect all your traffic through your VPCs and forward, and this transit gateway hub is getting created in network account. So as I mentioned that in previous slide we have a separate network account. This is the network account. This is the network account which is holding what? It's holding a firewall, right? I have just kept the IDS IPS firewall as a Palo Alto over here, but we can use AWS network firewall, we can use Fortinet firewall, we can use a checkpoint, anything, right? So the why we use a firewall to to detect the traffic which is going outside and inside, right? Any traffic from internet which is coming inside, right, to your environment, it will get inspected to your firewall. If your network engineer has a policy which is applied on this layer, so they will able to see all the traffic which is coming here, and if it's not matching the policy, the traffic by itself it will get dropped here, right? So they have a better control on this because anything coming from these services, they want to go to internet, they will come to transit gateway hub, and from transit gateway to go to the internet, and vice versa, like even the return response it will come from internet and go to the respective VPCs. So this gives you quite uh, north south traffic. So we say like hey, anything comes from network internet to your VPC, it's a north south traffic. Anything which is want to communicate between your VPC to VPC, right? That's the east west traffic. So if suppose your state service need to communicate to your app one production, right? So that's a east west traffic. Even that control can be controlled from here. So isolation also between VPC can be done. So and as you see this, we have the separate transit gateway for a UAT. The purpose of having this separate is because I don't want a UAT or testing environment to communicate my production. Anything is getting malicious done in the production because developer do the every now and then we do the testing environment for testing and POC, right? If any malware or anything gets deployed here and don't want to network to compromise, and it should not get spread to your production environment. So isolating your environment, isolating your network through transit gateway, that's the main purpose. And either below we have a VPN transit gateway. This is more of connecting your on-prem system to your cloud. Suppose you have an on-prem system, like you have a lot of offices, right? Offices which need to be connected. Site 1, site 2, site 3. It can connect it over site-to-site VPN. It can connect it over direct connect. It can connect over the internet, right? So there are different approach, but for the direct connect, you get a better bandwidth. For the site-to-site, you get a very limited bandwidth. But yeah, useful, very useful. And even this traffic can be reach out to your network account. Network person can see the traffic coming from on-prem, and will see it will pass to your network firewall, and from there it will reach to your production, right? If you want to. So this is more of a network architecture which will detect your services across VPC, and it will also prevent the any sort of malicious happening. So it comes as a multi-account network architectures under the landing zone. I hope this networking is clear. If any doubt, please feel free to ask in the comment. Okay, I think that's all from today's session. So I'll be arranging a demo for this in next video. More of creating landing zone control towers, and I'll show the multi-account VPC peering and those things, right? So stay tuned. Thanks for joining. I'll see you next video. Thank you.